Hi class, hope you're doing well and having a great week. Today we're going to talk about visualizing your data in Excel. Now this lecture or unit has two parts. The first part is where we'll do a basic overview of the different kinds of chart types you can get in Excel and then do a quick review on figures in APA style. In the second part we'll talk about your poster, and so we'll talk about how to start your chart and then how to edit your chart. And so pretty exciting stuff. Let's get going. Now when it comes to charts, Excel truly excels in graphing your data. Now I could hear you groaning in your heart. I'm so sorry about that. But here's a quick list of some of the common chart types that you can get in Excel that we might often see in research contexts. And so let me quickly introduce you to these chart types. So here's a column chart. Now, this type is great when you have one continuous variable that's summarized. So for example, you have mean or frequency for that variable, and that's typically shown on the y-axis. And then perhaps you have one or two categorical variables on the x-axis. So you can compare for those groups how they scored on the variable in the y-axis. Here's a line chart. And that's great for a continuous variable that's tracked over time or has a trend that you want to show. And then here's a pie chart. Yummy! Just kidding. So of course, this is where you have one categorical variable and you can show relative frequencies. So how many people belong to each category. Alternatively, like you see in the example here, you can show percentages or proportions of the sample that belong to each category. You can calculate that by taking the number of people who belong to each category and dividing that by the full sample size. And then here's a bar chart. This is very much like column chart, but then now they've flipped it over on the side. And so the continuous variable goes on the x-axis now, with one categorical variable that has several categories that are shown on the y-axis. So taking a look at this example, there are many different reasons for being late to class. Now, what's incredible about this graph is that so many people had no clean pants to wear. That's a little concerning, but I suppose life does happen. And then here's an area chart. And so this is if you have one continuous variable that's shown in the y-axis whose trend across categories or time, so that's shown on the x-axis, that you'd want to compare by group. And so we have three groups in this example, and you can see the different trends. Here's a scatter chart. And so this is when you have two continuous variables that are interdependent. So you want to illustrate that might be a relationship between them. And so this is usually for if you have a large number of data points. If you just have a few, you can't really show a trend or the relationship between the two variables. So a note on the axes. So the y-axis is the vertical one, and it's typically the outcome variable if you think in terms of relationships between variables. And then the x-axis is the horizontal axis, and that's often the predictor variable. And so you'll see this a lot more often when we talk about regression, but just want to take a note of what tends to go in which axis. Now Excel has a little friend that's the recommended charts button. And so if you feel like you want to be daring, you can always select the data and the category labels oftentimes that you want to use, and then go and click on recommended charts, which is the insert tab area, and then you go to the charts group and you can find the recommended charts button like that right here. And then you can preview and compare possible options. So you might see, for example, something like this where Excel will kind of give you different options to play with. And so if you feel like you want to see what Excel has got to offer, then this is a good option for you. My goodness, doesn't Excel have such awesome options for charts? Now that you have a good overview of different chart types, let's talk a little bit again about figures in APA style, a quick review. And so when you want to share your charts or graphs in APA style writing, they're labeled as figures. So you might remember that figure 1, figure 2, you number those as they appear in your writing. A couple of recommendations. You will want to generally use a 2D style in Excel because 3D style can be very difficult to understand or see for an audience. And you also, of course, want to make sure that your chart type, whatever you select, is appropriate to your data so that the audience will quickly understand what you're graphing and will not have any reason to be confused. And so please do follow these recommendations when you insert charts as figures in your APA style writing. I have in the slides pasted some additional recommendations about your images or graphs in APA style. This is for when you might need to have more formalized writing done. And so please feel free to come back to this slide as needed in the future. Just there for reference. And you might remember the APA style structure where you would start with a numbered figure in bold and then the italicized title, chart itself, and then the notes below. So very similar to tables and figures, and for a review, please feel free to go back to that tables and figures lesson. But I've pasted here, once again, just for reference, the basic components of a figure. So hopefully this is useful to have in your slides. Excellent work. So now you are very familiar with the types of charts that you could generate in Excel and how they might appear in an APA style paper or poster. So let's get over to the poster side in the next video. Look forward to seeing you there. Talk soon.